So welcome to day two of Blueprinting Our Business. And yesterday we talked a little bit about putting together the pieces for building our roadmap, right? We talked about how we want to understand what our product and service is, if it's a gain creator or pain reliever, how it fits into that half of the roadmap, and then what our customer wants from us and what job we have to satiate and the consumption jobs that we have to do to deliver a product, good, or service to our customers. That's the other half of our roadmap, right? And if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch it. This is the second day, so in about the next 15 minutes, we're going to really still focus on blueprinting our business. Today, we're just going to stay focused on here. We're not going to go and look at the Monday board. Additionally, if you want to start building this yourself, go to figma.com, open a free account, and start writing your components down. And let me know in the comments, right? So you've got a product or service, gain creator, pain reliever, same sort of thing. You understand what your customer wants. You're going to put together your roadmap. But let's talk about how do we understand, how do we ask questions, how do we make sure that we've got this right fit, right? We want to start with a particular set of components during our interview. Now, when we start an interview, it's always easy to just say, what do you think of my product? And unfortunately, that won't work. People will turn away from you. So we want to start asking questions with intention, curiosity, and creativity. So think about the people that you think will buy your product or good or service and how you can go about this with intention, curiosity, and creativity. Now, we are just going to talk about interview processes, how to ask good questions. We're going to build a little bit on our sales cycle and how that goes. I'm going to share a little bit of mine and then how you can start to build yours. So we need to understand the background of the pain point that a customer is having, right? And we want to understand about the job. So ask them some questions. Open your conversation with, tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do? Now you have to listen. Don't solve the problem. Don't solve the problem. They know you can solve the problem. Don't solve it. Then you want to move to, when was the last time that you did that main job? When was the last time you installed that software? When was the last time you used that hardware? And how did you feel when you were doing that particular job? I felt, and they will say, frustrated, happy, relieved. It didn't bother me. Complicated, right? Listen for the emotions that are tied to that job and their statement. Then we need to understand what that main and related job is. So what do we want to do? We want to understand what is it that you're trying to accomplish and what tasks are involved. Are you trying to build something, ship something, right? What is that step that they are trying to accomplish? Remember, this should be fundamentals. You should be drawing out, literally draw out what they're telling you so you have a good understanding and you can clearly convey these things. Using Figma, you can do that. So then we want to understand, what tasks are involved. This might be a very itemized list. Good time to switch to documentation, do that listening on that interview, and I'll show you a good interview sheet in tomorrow's video. So, and then what problems are you trying to prevent or resolve? Great question. Again, switch to your listening ears. Don't solve. Listen for what this customer is telling you because that's going to help you activate your sales cycle, right? Now, ask them what helps you achieve your goal. They'll tell you and try to fit your solution into what you are developing. And then what would be the ideal service to do the job for you, right? Have them tell you what their ideal solution is, and then ask them, what else are you trying to get done? Right here, you now have the background. You know the steps they take. You understand how they feel. You understand what they're trying to do, what they are unable to do, and in an ideal world, how that process would go. So that's going to let us move into the next part. Understand the process of executing that job. This is a little different, right? This is actually doing that work, opening the software, making the product, whatever that is. And then we ask them, how did you get started? What's the previous step? This is inherently important with systems design, engineering, and architecture. You need to know the previous step before we build the next step. How do you continue after that? How do you make decisions along the way? These are excellent questions. Write these questions down because you can reuse these in your customer discovery cycle. You need to understand if you've got a good fit with the service you're delivering. How do you know you're doing the job right? And how do you wrap things up? Now you understand how this professional is doing the work, what they are expecting, how, again, what the process is, the stages, steps, and phases, and then how do you wrap it up? How do you get out of your box and into the next one. Then we need to understand, we need to find our needs, right? This is an excellent spot, especially in the security space. What workarounds exist in your process? They all know them, and it's important to approach this sensitively and delicately, right? And then ask them too, what do you dread about doing? Why do you avoid it, right? What do you avoid? What could be easier and why? Why do you avoid certain parts of doing those jobs? What's the most annoying part? What is frustrating? And how do you feel when that job is completed? These are really good questions to ask. Don't just ask them mechanically, right? Assess the conversation as you're going, but these are wonderful questions to start to understand your customer's problem. Ask excellent questions. And then what we need to do is then move on probing on circumstances, right? We need to understand the most important factors that get that job done. And then we need to understand what conditions influence their decision. Do they do it different when they're in a rush? Do they do it different when they're not focused on the task? And ask them, how does your environment feel when you do this, right? What's your ideal environment? So now you've got a really good holistic picture of what your customer is trying to do, how you're going to solve their problem, and this really lets us dig in and explore that without making that client or customer feel like they're on the spot or being interrogated. This is a much more natural dialogue, and it's very important that you, as the solutions expert or architect, are listening and not solving the problem. Because each customer will probably tell you something different. Even if you talk to all the individuals on a team, they will all have a different experience. And putting together a holistic solution that addresses the problems by all the team members is going to go farther, and it's going to be more empathetic. You're going to have a better connection. So, if you're having trouble, let's do a couple things here. If your customer discovery session is not necessarily getting you answers that you're hoping for, ask them about a specific incident that happened and ask them about how they executed the job when that incident happened, right? Have them describe the experience and in detail the problem that happened. And again, what is the ideal state, right? What should have happened? What would have been ideal? And that's going to really uncover your underlying needs. So what we've done here is we really understand a couple things. We're going to dig deep. We're going to do a lot of listening. We're going to have rapport. I suggest that these discussions occur on camera, right? You want to understand, you want to watch for some body language. You want to use pauses. Don't just run through these questions because your customer will feel unheard, unrespected, and you're not going to get that component, right? This is a slower dialogue. This is back and forth. You should be taking notes and listening. No problem solvings, no problem solutions. Now, how are we going to write all of this information down? We need to document a couple things. We need observations, quotes, and notes. These are 3 separate containers, right? Observations can be from your technical or your expertise background. Quotes are going to do the best service for you. Now, be careful about directly quoting somebody, but it does work. When you write something down that's sort of that statement where you're like, wow, that's important. You want to be able to reference that. You want to be able to reference the time, but it's not the time to create conflict amongst the teams. So be careful about the information that you quote, and just approach it delicately. And then notes, right? If you have something that you might want to bring up or you think is your solution, put it in the notes. Now, you have to think about the interpretations, right? We've talked in the first video about the job steps from acquisition and purchasing through disposal, and we also have to account for interpretations of emotional and social needs and circumstances. So record in your observations when your customer uses the word feel. Or be perceived as, or avoid being seen as. Those are great keywords that are your turn to write that down. Probably be a good quote. And then listen when your customer describes a hack, a workaround, avoidance, procrastination. This is excellent time to optimize and identify where that process is broken. And then anytime that they say when is a circumstance. Anytime that they say when is a circumstance. And it is a whole separate category, and it's super important in your customer discovery process, along with solving the problem that you're trying to deliver the solution for. So again, we want to not solve anything. When we do our documentation, begin things with a verb and omit any reference to technologies or solutions. Again, omit any reference to technologies or solutions. So we're going to start our customer discovery call with a couple things that are really important: intention, curiosity, and creativity. We're going to establish background by asking questions about the person, and first, ask them about themselves first. Then we're going to move into what is that main and related job? What is the emotional component that you experience? What is the process of executing that job, right? Find the needs and then probe on the circumstances. Again, you should be listening for a couple of keywords. Do you remember them? Let's go check them out again. Our keywords that we want to check, right? When, feel, avoid feeling, avoid being seen as. Listen to the why questions as well as hacks and workarounds, and be sure that anything that begins with a verb can start to be a component of a direction of change. And we'll talk about direction of change tomorrow and how you can shape an organization's behavior by focusing on some of these vocabularies, by focusing on some of these terminologies that occur, and integrating a model. So your notes need to have a section for observations. Your notes need to account for some quotes, and you need to have a note section. Don't solve with a technology problem or technology solution. Focus on the job and how it gets done and any workarounds around that. So in less than 15 minutes today, we've identified how to ask substantially better questions on customer interview and to grow and scale what we're going to do and deliver a better product and solution for our customer. If you're enjoying this, like, comment, follow along. I'd love to know what you're doing, and let me know how you've done on registering for Figma and making a board of your own. Thanks.